Welcome to So French, the show about the twists and turns, intrigues and insights to all things French.
Every 2 weeks we select the best, most interesting and fascinating of French news stories, all brought to you from a studio in the heart of Paris. My name is Stefan de Vries.
And my name is Sara Bertilsson.
This week has been the tale of two interior ministers, one of them resigning twice, triggering a new crisis in the already fragilized government.
And the other one taking off towards new horizons in the south, Manuel Valls switching Paris for Barcelona.
And somebody else said adieu this week, and that's the French Frank Sinatra, the entertainer of the century, Charles Aznavour. He passed away this week, leaving behind him a more than half a century career and more than 1,200 recorded songs.
But first, let's kick off with some politics, because it's been, what a week. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah,
what
incredible.
a week.
Yeah, of course, another resignation of a very important minister to Emmanuel Macron, Gérard Collomb, the Minister of the Interior. He was also the mayor of Lyon.
For a long time, before joining forces with Emmanuel Macron.
For many centuries. The man is already 71 years old. But more importantly, he was also probably one of the first supporters of Emmanuel Macron. He was a socialist minister, but very early in the beginning of Emmanuel Macron's movement, he decided to join and to support Emmanuel Macron. So this was a big slap in the face. And why did he leave?
Well, there are many different reasons, I think. What been announced as the official reason for all of this is, of course, that he, a couple of days ago, announced that he was planning on going back to Lyon and run for mayor once again for a fourth term, and that he then had planned to leave his job as interior minister after the European elections next year. However, this created some kind of confusion in the political class in France, because many were asking the questions, well, is he really the interior minister? If he's thinking about, if he's planning his bid to be the mayor of Lyon, where are his priorities? And is he, France will need a full-time interior minister and not someone who's doing it, on
the side,
on Saturday and Sundays. So this was the beginning. And then to sort of clear out this confusion, well, he actually handed in his resignation to Emmanuel Macron. And what happened? He was refused.
Yeah.
And some were saying that it was just a big question of sort of theater to show that, no, Emmanuel Macron doesn't want him to leave. No, he will stay in government, etc. But then there was another twist in this story, because after the refusal, he actually gave a new interview to a news magazine. Yeah. Where he said that he was still thinking about resigning. And this pushed then him to once again hand in a letter of resignation. And this time there was no other possibility for Emmanuel Macron than to actually accept this resignation.
Yeah, it's a big humiliation, because Emmanuel Macron wasn't really informed. I read that Edouard Philippe, the prime minister, he received a push alert of Le Figaro, the newspaper.
He was in the middle of he was standing in the Assemblée Nationale and responding to questions from parliamentarians, while at the same time this interview was published on internet with the interior minister saying that, I'm still going to go, I'm still going for.
So there's a huge breach of protocol.
It is. And this is the second time in a month, because we had also the resignation of Nicolas Hulot that was done on live radio one morning. And he clearly said, I had not talking to the president, neither to the prime minister. No one knows about this. And then Collomb, which is, senior, another senior minister in the government. Huge humiliation for the government, for Emmanuel Macron. There are probably more than this bid to be the mayor of Lyon behind this, because Gérard Collomb on his side also thinks that he has been humiliated this summer.
Yeah, and well, it should be said, of course, that the Ministry of Home Affairs in France is really considered probably the most important ministry because it's the Ministry of Police.
Yes.
And the police are, of course, very powerful in France. So, and in the fight against terrorism, it's a very bad sign when there is no home minister, of course. What's interesting also is that the night of his resignation, Collomb already was the new mayor of Lyon, because that's how it goes in France. Somebody who was elected as a mayor, but he was a replacement. So Collomb just said, okay, now you leave, and I'm the new mayor of Lyon. Which is,
technically it isn't that easy because he had to hand in he left his office and then there will be a new election in 2 weeks. But I mean, yes.
Yeah, but it all took place in like a couple of hours,
yes,
actually.
Of course. It's also funny how you talk about these politicians as they are the owners of a town, you know, l'homme de Lyon.
Absolutely.
It's like Lyon belongs to Gérard Collomb in some way. So it's very old fashioned way of looking at politics. And, you know, as someone pointed out, if he then wins another mandate, he will be 80, I think, when he
resigns. Yeah, he's now about 72. There will be new elections in 2020. Yeah. And then he can stay mayor for 6 years, I think. So yeah, indeed, he will be 80 years. But people in Lyon were not very amused. He was very popular when he was a mayor, but now most of the people living in Lyon just think, well, you know, he's too old. Why does he have to come back? So it's not very clear whether he will win this election, and that people are still waiting for him. But as you mentioned, becoming the mayor of Lyon again is probably not the only reason that he resigned. I think that he really never was really happy in the government. He always looked a bit like droopy, like this sad dog in the government, like he was never really felt at ease in the government. So according to newspaper Le Monde, he already planned to escape from Paris back to Lyon last July, so only 2 months after Macron's election. So he has been planning this for a long time, and it means that he actually never took his ministry very seriously. So,
and then we had the whole Benalla story,
of course,
that came this summer with the young collaborator to Emmanuel Macron, where then Gérard Collomb was put in a position where he had to answer questions in front of a parliamentarian committee. And he was pretty much humiliated in front of that committee where he could not answer. He had, to respond in the place of what he considered the Élysée, who should have been in charge and, responsible for Benalla's acts. And
he clearly not really supported Emmanuel Macron either. He tried to protect him, but he was also, he came across as weak. And that was, of course, a bad sign. He also said that Emmanuel Macron in the whole Benalla case should have been more, humble in the way he handled it. And so Macron, being Macron, he didn't like that either.
Yeah, he has been saying, off the record, he has been criticizing Emmanuel Macron to journalists and saying that he is too much of a duparitarian president, and he's not, as you said, taking into calculation enough people that are surrounding him.
Yeah. So what are the consequences now?
Well, the consequences for Emmanuel Macron, once again, I mean, he's already dropping in the polls. The government was already in some kind of crisis, both in the eyes of the public, but also when it comes to the finances, as we talked about last time, that, the growth figures for France are not looking as good as they were expected to, and that numbers, the actual money that the government will have to spend, is not that as much as they had thought or hoped for. So, there will be the budget will have to be adapted, and there'll have to be cuts, and that's of course not always good for a government. But then I must say, I don't think that Gérard Collomb, or I know that Gérard Collomb was nowhere near Nicolas Hulot in the sense of popularity. Nicolas Hulot was the government's most popular minister. Gérard Collomb was not a very popular minister, but it gives this definitely this idea of amateurism, and that the president is, after all, surrounded by people who are maybe not as professional as you would hope for in for the presidency of the French Republic.
Yeah, Now, Edouard Philippe, the Prime Minister, is acting now as the Minister of the Interior because it's, of course, a very important ministry until there's a new one. And that's probably next week before the next Ministry Council. So in the second half of October. So are there any interesting candidates? Macron wanted to promote women, so maybe this time.
Well, so far the candidates that have been, around in media, it doesn't look like any women nowhere in sight. Very white male, middle-aged men. Couple of names have been mentioned, Christophe Castaner, but who many considers a bit too inexperienced for the kind of important position that the Interior Minister is. And then the current Budget Minister, also very young, Gérard Darmanin, who, but we should remember, was just recently cleared of accusations of having used his position to get sexual favors. We will just have to wait and see, I guess. But for now, the names that are sort of circulating doesn't inspire so much of a new, fresh era in French politics. It looks pretty much like the good old days.
Now, another former Prime Minister was in the news as well this week. We've seen him a lot the last couple of days in French media. He is actually a refugee to be Manuel Valls.
Former Interior Minister as well.
As well, indeed. Yeah, he was a former Interior Minister under François Hollande. He announced his candidacy to become the mayor of Barcelona. Barcelona, which is interesting in many ways because I think we can say that Manuel Valls is probably the most hated politician in France, and many politicians are really hated.
We should just maybe remind our listeners, Manuel Valls, then former Interior Minister, former Prime Minister under Hollande, and then he made a bid to become the socialist candidate for the elections in 2017. He lost that bid. And then he tried to rally Emmanuel Macron because he felt that that's where his, services would be best used. Yeah. He was rejected by Emmanuel Macron. And so he went back to become the strongman of his Essonne, which is just outside of Paris. But then he started, growing this idea of maybe there are other places where I could get some influence.
He became an MP, and he rallied somehow La République en Marche, Macron's movement, but he never was really part of it.
He was never, officially he was never part of it, even though he said that he would support them in parliament.
Yeah, but he was always alone. Nobody really talked to him, and he wasn't really present either at the Assemblée. So this week he resigned as an MP. And he's going to Barcelona. Now, that's really interesting from a European point of view. It is probably one of the first times that a very prominent European politician decides to stand for another job in another European country. But of course, Manuel Valls was born in Barcelona. He has only French citizenship. He became French when he was 18, and then he decided to get rid of the Spanish citizenship. He grew up here in France, but he was also very attached to...
And he speaks the language.
He speaks Catalan,
both
he speaks
Catalan
Spanish.
And Spanish, exactly.
And interestingly enough, his grandfather composed the hymn, the song of FC Barcelona, of course.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So he has some kind of history with that place. But of course, it's pretty opportunistic.
What's interesting is how much attention this has gotten in France, of course. Maybe that's normal. He's a former minister and all of this. But from what I've been hearing from Barcelona is that, the interest in Barcelona is a bit not.
Yeah, there's only one poll that dates from April when there were rumors that he would maybe stand for mayor and then he would get 11% of the votes. There are no recent polls about this, but indeed,
we should say that his political agenda would